this year, which is how Kohanim are able to maneuver funerals and going to the Beis HaKvaros, going to the cemetery, when they have one of their close relatives for whom they are permitted to be metame according to the Torah. The Torah says that a Kohen is allowed to be metame for his 7 closest relatives: mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, and wife. So those are the 7 people. If one of those people, God forbid, dies, the Kohen not only is permitted to, but has a mitzvah to do whatever is necessary to take care of the needs of the mace. One of the issues that we won't be discussing tonight is to what extent can the Kohen be metame himself if the needs of the mace have already been taken care of? Is he still allowed to go and be next to, in the proximity of the mace as it's on its way to the burial, or stay as a shomer for the mace, and so forth? So those are things that we won't be discussing tonight. Maybe we'll touch on that next week, because we're only going to be beginning the shir tonight. Another issue that we won't be discussing tonight are limitations on when the Kohen is not permitted to be metame, even for one of his close relatives. The example that's given in Shulchan Aruch is that in order for a Kohen to be permitted to be metame for one of his relatives, the body must be completely intact. If there's a portion of the body missing, the Kohen is not allowed to be metame even for one of those 7 krovim, even for one of those 7 relatives. But what I'd like to discuss tonight are some of the practical issues that can come up. First of all, the most practical issue that comes up is the Kohen maneuvering through the cemetery in order to be able to bury his loved one. Is a Kohen allowed to be metame for other mesim once he's been given a dispensation that he can be metame for his own relative? This has applications in different ways for going to the cemetery and having to traverse areas where he's going to have to come proximally to other mesim and possibly walk over other kvaros, or certainly within Daled Amos of someone else's kever. And it'll also be an issue of where, let's say, the funeral service is in a chapel. Let's say Steele's Memorial would be a good example, where there are other corpses, other mesim in the building. Can the Kohen go inside the building at the same time? Not only he's going in for his loved one, but there are other mesim in that very same building as well. Would he be allowed to go in for them as well? In other words, I grant you the Torah gave me a heter to be metame for my relative, but can I add tumah to my dispensed tumah and go into a chapel where there are other mesim as well? So I just want to, for the purposes of tonight, just give an introduction to this topic, because we won't be able to do it justice in just about 20 minutes or so. Let's take a look at the Mishnah and the Gemara in Maseches Nazir, which sort of acts as one of the source texts for this sugya, and then we'll take it from there. The Mishnah says, and this is a Mishnah that starts at the bottom of Mem Beis Amud Aleph in Nazir, Nazir shahaya metame lemesim kol hayom eino chayev ela echas. That if a Nazir, who also has very similar prohibitions of being metame, just like a Kohen, actually his prohibition of being metame is worse even than a Kohen, because a Kohen has a dispensation that he's allowed to be metame for one of his 7 krovim, and a Nazir does not. If a Nazir was being metame for anybody, right, and he kept doing it, touch that body, then touch that body, then touch that body, and he's doing it the entire day, so he's only liable to bring 1 korban chatas for 1 violation of his Nazirism. Amrulo al tetame v'hu metame chayav kol echas ve'echas. But he's only liable 1 korban chatas because he's done it behelam echas, which means without being made aware of his violation after every time he came in contact with the dead. But if after every time he came in contact with a corpse, 2 witnesses came over to him and said, don't do that again, and then he went and did it again, so then he's consciously and separately going and being metame himself one after the other, he's liable for multiple karbanos chatas, for multiple violations of his Nazirism. Now, the chiddush, of course, of this entire idea is that even though you could argue that once I've been metame myself, it's already verfallen, we say no. If the Torah told you don't come in contact with the dead, even if you did already, you can't say, well, the milk is spilled already, so therefore I can continue being metame. I'm not making myself any worse. The answer is you are. And actually, can anyone think of a reason why you're making yourself actually halachically worse by coming in contact the second time with the dead? We'll explain that momentarily. We'll explain why that is. But the fact is, that's the law with kahuna as well. I mean, I've had this question come to me numerous times. Why should I, as a Kohen, have to worry about going to a Beis Olam? I've invariably am already tamei tumas meis. So just coming in contact with other kfaros, I'm not adding anything. But the fact is, from this Mishnah, you see that the halacha is, even if you're tamei once, you incur a second violation by being metame a second time. Okay? Let's take a look at the Gemara. Itmar. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Huna, Mikra mole diber hakasov lo yitama, keshehu omer lo yavo, lahazhiro al hatuma, lahazhiro al habiyah. So the question that the Gemara asks is, why does the Torah have to say in two different ways that a Nazir is not allowed to come in contact with the dead? If it already said lo yitama, then why does it have to say lo yavo? He's not allowed to come in proximity of a corpse. So why does it have to say that two times? So the answer is to tell me lahazhiro al hatuma, lahazhiro al habiyah. The answer is that he's not allowed to come in physical contact with a corpse, and he's also not allowed to come into the oihel of a corpse. There are two ways that a person can become tamei through a corpse, either physical contact with the corpse, between myself and the corpse, or being in the same room as a corpse. That's called tumas ohel. And that's what the Torah uses the double language for, to tell me, regardless of whether you come in contact through tumas maga or through tumas ohel, you're still going to be liable in violation of your Nazarism. So, avol tuma v'tuma lo. But there is no such thing as tuma v'tuma. That if you touch a corpse and then touch a corpse again, you don't incur a second violation. That's what the initial statement of the Gemara is. V'Rav Yosef amar ha'elokim, amar Rav Huna afilu tuma v'tuma. And so Rav Yosef disagrees with his colleague Rabbah, and he says, by God, you're misquoting Rav Huna. Rav Huna actually did say that you do incur a second violation if you touch a corpse a second time. The Amar Rav Huna, Nazir shehaya omed b'veis hakvaros v'hoshitu lo meso u'meis acher v'naga bo chayev. So, because Rav Huna said that if a Nazir is standing in a cemetery and they pass him his own corpse, and they pass him a second corpse. Now it's not like passing the potatoes. In other words, what it means is that they pass him the casket, right? And then they pass him a second casket. So if he touches both, he's going to be liable twice, both for touching his his first friend, and then for touching a stranger as well. Amai hamitame v'kaim. So why should that be according to the way you originally explained it? If he's already become tamei. So elalav shma mina amar Rav Huna afilu tuma v'tuma. So you see, therefore, that Rav Huna holds that you can incur a second and third and fourth violation of tuma, even if you already exposed yourself to tuma as a nazir. Eisvei Abaye. So Abaye challenges this, and he says, Kohen shahayalo meis munach al ksefo. Look at the following brisa. If a Kohen has a corpse on his shoulder, he's actually carrying the corpse. V'hoshitu lo mesa u'mes acher v'nagabo, or if they pass him his corpse, his relative, and then they pass him another mace, yachol yehi chayev, you might think that he's liable for the non-relative mace that he's touching. Tamulomar v'lo yechalel, b'mi she'eno mechulal yatzazeh shehu mechulal ve'omed. So therefore the Torah says, lo yechalel, he's not allowed to profane himself. But if he's already profaned because he's got a dispensation to be in contact with his relative, then there's no prohibition of coming in contact with a stranger's corpse. So the question is, you see that you're not incurring a second violation. So Amar Lei v'tikshilach masnisin. Ditnan haya mitame lemesim kol hayom ein chayev ela echas. Well, the Mishnah says that if a Nazir touches corpses for the entire day, corpse 1, corpse 2, corpse 3, he only incurs one violation. How can you tell me that there's going to be the possibility of multiple violations? So Amrulo, al tatame chayv al kol echas ve'echas. But if there was an interruption in between and we made him aware that he was touching multiple corpses, so then he will be chayv on each one. So the question is just the opposite. How can you say that you're only chayv once, and since you're already tummy, you don't incur a second violation? Well, you see from our Mishnah that you do. V'amai hamitame v'koin. So why should that be? Elakasha ahadadi lokasha kan b'chiburin kan shelo b'chiburin. And the Gemara's conclusion is that if you're touching one corpse, you don't incur a second violation if while you're touching one corpse, you're touching another corpse. But if you're touching corpse A, and then you release corpse A, and then you take hold of corpse B, and there's knowledge in between, so then you incur a second violation. And that's the conclusion of the Gemara. And that addresses both the Nazir issue and the Kohen issue, is that while I'm holding on to corpse A, if I touch corpse B, it's not a second violation for a Nazir. And similarly for a Kohen, if I have a heter to touch corpse A, then I don't incur any violation by touching corpse B while I'm touching corpse A. And as we'll see, the same halacha holds true that if I'm in an ohel with corpse A, then there's no prohibition to introduce corpse B into that ohel because I'm already under the dispensation that I'm allowed to be metame for corpse A.
Should we delineate between maga and masa?
Right. Right. There doesn't seem to be any delineation. The poskim here only talk about maga and ohel, but I would presume that masa is of the same category. Now the Torah says this explicitly. The Torah says, "Uvaod shehakohen misasek b'meso mutar latamos gam la'acherim." While the kohen is directly dealing with his relative, he's doing the tahara, let's say, or he's doing shmira, then he's allowed to have contact with a secondary corpse that is not a relative. Aval misha piresh latamos lemeso asur latamos gam la'acherim. But once he has separated himself from his relative, he does not have a heter anymore to be metame for a stranger. Afilu bo bayom, even if it's the self-same day. Now the reason why the Torah says even if it's the self-same day is because there's another text that we won't be seeing inside from one of the Masechtos Ketanos called Eicha Rabasi that brings a shita of Rabbi Akiva who says that if it's bo bayom, then even if it's separate touches, it's okay. We don't paskin that way, but there's a Rabbeinu Tam that paskins that way, but he's a minority opinion that, as the Torah will tell us, we do not accept. Lefichach ein lo likanes lebeis hakvaros likvor meso, af al pi shebishosh shemachniso mutar latamos la'acherim. He says, therefore, a kohen may not enter into a beis hakvaros even if he is transporting his deceased relative. Why? Because since, even though you could argue that while he's in contact with his relative, he's allowed to expose himself to other mesim, but mikol makom la'achar hakvura kishechozer al hakvarim mosif lo tuma. But what about the way back? The way there, no problem. But the way back is going to be a problem. I'm not touching anymore my mace, my relative. And when I come back, I'm only coming in contact with non-relatives. And that's the problem. Lefichach mishpachos kahuna osin lahem shchuna besof beis hakvaros shelo yitamu b'kivrei acherim v'chein kosav harambam. And it is for that reason that Kohanic families set up areas in the cemetery that will allow them to steer clear of other mesim so that they can bury their dead without coming in contact with other bodies. And that's what the Rambam writes. Now, those words, v'chein kosav harambam, are not as simple as they seem. We're going to look at the Rambam momentarily. V'rabbeinu tam kosav sheyochol likones lebeis hakvaros likbor meso v'lo nihira. And Rabbeinu Tam says it's perfectly mutter, even lechatchila, to go and enter into the Beis HaKvaros, and making this kind of separate shchuna, this separate area for Kohanim, is unnecessary. Apparently because he paskins like, the Beis Yosef discusses this, apparently because he paskins like that Rebbe Akiva Shita in Evel Rabasi, but we're not going to go like Rabbeinu Tam because he's a minority opinion. Now I want you to skip to source number 4, and I want us to take a look at the Rambam carefully, and I want you to tell me whether the Tur read the Rambam correctly or not. Because the Tur essentially has written that according to the Rambam, there's no problem for a Kohen to go into the cemetery with his mace. It's only a problem for the Kohen to leave the cemetery without his mace, being in contact with other people. Okay? Let's take a look at the language. Hatuma l'krovim duchuyehi v'lo hutra l'kol. Okay, so the first thing the Rambam writes is that when we talk about the suspension of Tumah for a Kohen, when it comes to his relatives, there are two terms that we could use. We could either say hutra or we could say duchuya. They both mean that the Isser is removed, but hutra means it's completely removed, meaning that the Isser is not there at all. And duchuya means that the Isser is there, but it's suspended. Now what's the difference? We're going to come up with a halachic difference, but we're not going to discuss, I don't think we'll have time to discuss that tonight. We'll save that for next week. The difference between hutra and duchuya when it comes to the Kohen's permissibility to be metame for his mace. It makes a very big difference, as we'll see in the Minchas Chinuch. Lefichach. But anyway, now that we know that Tumah is suspended from the Kohen, Asr lekohen lehistami lemeis, afilu be'ez shemistami lekrovav. It is asr for a Kohen, therefore, to be metame for another dead person, even while he's being metame for his relative. Shenemar la yitama, eno metame la'acherim ima. That he shall be metame for her, meaning his relative, but not for anyone else. Shalo Yomar, he should not say, Hol v'nitmesi al avi, alake atzamos ploni, o ega bekever ploni. A Kohen may not say, since I've already become tameh for my father, I might as well go ahead and do other stuff for other people in the Beis HaKvaros. What's the big deal? I've already made myself tameh. So lefichach Kohen shemes lo meis, tzarech lihizaher ulekavro besof Beis HaKvaros, kedei shelo yikanes lebeis HaKvaros, velo yistame bekivros acherim kisheyikvor meso. And therefore, says the Rambam, when a Kohen should set up a separate area in the cemetery to bury his dead so that he does not have to encounter other mesim when he goes to bury his dead. I'm asking you, detective, rabbinic detective, is the Tur and the Rambam, are they saying the same thing or are they saying different things?
The Tur brings up Pirush, and the Rambam doesn't seem to differentiate from that.
Pirush meaning what?
Only when he separates.
The Kohen, when he separates, only then is there an Isser of coming in contact with other Mason.
Right.
And because why? Because again, what did the Tur say? To go to this, to bury your dead would be mutter because you're in touch with your karov.
The Rambam doesn't seem to say that.
The Rambam doesn't say that.
Right.
The Rambam seems to say that it'll be usher even to go into the cemetery with your mace because you're exposing yourself to other maceim even while you're touching your mace. Do you agree, or do you, I don't want to force you to accept this, because is there another way to read the Rambam?
It seems that the Rambam is saying that you don't even go into the basic forest. That they bury him by the edge of the basic forest. Shelo yikanes lebasic forest.
Shelo yikanes lebasic forest. Well, that's what the Torah had said also. But the Torah had said that the reason why you shouldn't go into the Beis HaKvaros is because not because it's a problem going in, it's a problem exiting. The Rambam doesn't make that differentiation, though. The Rambam says, Stam azoi, Kohen should never go in regardless of whether he's escorting his mace or regardless of whether he's leaving the cemetery.
You could argue that the Rambam is saying that he shouldn't purposely on the way in. He uses the language, he makes a conscious decision. I'm going for my father's, I'll go do this, I'll go do that. That might be different than just allowing him to walk through the kever with no kavanah to touch anything else, or to walk through the cemetery with no kavanah.
But would that make a nafkamina? If you know invariably you're going to be coming in contact with other corpses.
But then he's anus. He's chayav in this sort of mitzvah. He's going to the Beit Kfar. There's no other way.
I hear what you're saying. Shmuel's arguing that he's like an anus because he has no other choice. He has a mitzvah to bury his father, and he doesn't have any other choice. Okay, we're going to leave this Rambam for now. We're going to see two different ways of interpreting the Rambam, and we'll have to come back to the tour. I'm sorry I have to cut it short tonight. We'll continue Mirz Hashem next week at 7:30, our regular time.